Did you see it? It's right there. Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason. And when we're talking about low profile camping out, stealth camping, whatever you want to call it, site selection is probably going to be the most important thing. How you set up your camp is important, but definitely where you set it up is going to be key. Now, for example, I'm on this trail right here. And as my eyes kind of scan through the terrain here, what stands out to me are really bright patches on the ground and clearings where I can see a long ways. My eyes kind of gloss over places that are dark and where I can't see very far. And those locations that you just kind of glance over and you don't even pay attention to, those are the optimal places to set up your camp if you're doing under the radar. My eyes don't really go to this spot right here because I just can't see much right there. There's nothing interesting to look at right there. So that is where I want to set up my camp most likely. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to make a direct path to it because it would be easy for someone to follow my tracks to that location and loose leaf litter and all that kind of stuff. Maybe not easy, but easier. So what I want to do is I want to backtrack a little bit the way that I came and then I'm going to go off the trail about 90 degrees off the trail, and I'm going to circle around to that spot that I kind of eyeballed. So I'll just kind of keep that general area in mind as I circle back. Following game trails is generally a good idea, especially if you're trying to conceal the direction that you're moving. And deer are very sneaky. Deer generally follow the path of least resistance. Easy ways to travel through the woods, which is good for you. But they also, whenever they have to cross roads or anything like that, they pick spots that are not easily seen from a lot of directions. So next time you see a deer crossing the road, pay attention to where it's crossing the road. And I think you'll find that it's kind of a discreet place. It's not super obvious most of the time. You probably can't pick up on it on camera, but I'm following a game trail right now. It's very discreet. Going right there. Again, you probably can't tell on camera, but game trail. And now, just like when you're picking out spots, usually like just for regular camping, you got to pay attention to all the normal stuff like widow makers and resources at hand if you want to have a fire. In this situation, I'm not going to have a fire. But you don't want to camp out in a drainage where you're going to get washed away if it should rain on you. You don't want to camp on a heavily used game trail because you might get trampled in the middle of the night. All these things you have to pay attention to. Wigglies on the ground, things are going to bite you. You got to pay attention to these key factors just like you normally would. But one added detail is being concealed. So right now I am in a rhododendron thicket. These rhododendrons, these evergreens, this stuff here, they keep their leaves all year long, and their branches is like this impenetrable maze of branches that's really difficult to get to. So traveling through all this stuff here behind me is really, really challenging. And most people would not anticipate that someone's going to be camped out in a location like that. Another tip is if you're going to and from your campsite multiple times, which you probably shouldn't in this situation, once you bed down, just stay there. Get everything ready to go beforehand. Get your water, get all the things that you need, and then bed down and stay there until it's time to get up and move again. But if you should have to go back and forth a couple times, maybe you're spending a couple of nights there, pick different options, different routes getting there, and don't create a well-worn highway going to and from your camp. In the summertime, it's super easy to disguise yourself and blend in because of the foliage, especially where I live. It's just a jungle. But in the fall, late fall like this, when all the leaves are gone, you can see significantly further, but it's still not that challenging to find a spot that's really secluded. One thing to pay attention to is just listen. Use your ears. Stop, sit down, be quiet, and listen, because there may be something just out of sight that you weren't aware of until you stop and listen for a second. Like there might be a road, you know, a quarter mile away that I didn't even know for sure was there until I stopped and listened. All I need for my shelter is just a big enough spot for me to lay down. That's it. I don't need anything else. And this spot that I'm looking at right here is just about ideal. It is not out in the open. It's fairly concealed. It's between some trees like this big one right here that's going to conceal me from the trail that I was on down below. I don't want to pick a spot that I have to do a whole lot of cleaning up. I don't want to have to do a lot of changes to the site in order to make it livable. I just want to find something that's going to work good enough for me to lay down and go to sleep. I have a gift. Maybe I'm special. I can lay down pretty much anywhere. Doesn't matter, and fall asleep. So that's my superpower, I think, if I had one. So this spot right here is looking very comfortable and will do the job. All I gotta do is move a couple of sticks and then I'm good to go. Problem where I live and the location where I live is that there's very little flat ground available. The flat ground is generally in very obvious locations that's been cleared of some sort. So on the hillsides, which is a good place to camp because you don't want to be in the bottom. If you're down in the bottom where there might be some flat ground, it gets really, really cold. And if it's summertime, it's really, really buggy. You don't want to be way up on top because in the wintertime, it's going to be really, really windy and probably cold. And you're going to be silhouetted. It's going to be easy to see somebody way up there on that ridge line right there. So you don't want to be up top either. Somewhere in the middle is nice. That's kind of the Goldilocks zone. But again, it's hard to find flat spots. But with the setup that I've got going on, you need very little real estate. Now, I like to have options based on the weather. The most minimum setup that I've got is this ground pad right here, this thermarest pad that I've cut down a little bit. I've taken a few sections out to make it a little bit smaller, a little bit more compact. And I've got a very small, I've got this bivy bag here. This is a military bivy bag that came out of the modular sleep system, which I really, really like. This thing is bomb-proof, and I like it a lot. A little bit big, a little bit heavy, but man, it's nice. So at a minimum, what I can do is I can crawl inside this thing and lay on top of my pad here. And if the weather's nice and warm, it doesn't even matter. I'll be fine in that. And now if it should come a light drizzle, I'll be fine. No need for overhead cover. If the temperature should drop a little bit, I could always crawl inside this SOL Escape bivy and inside this bivy and be a little bit warmer. Now for a minimum setup, it doesn't get much more discreet than that. It is low profile, way low to the ground. It blends into its environment. It's not shiny. It is in a secluded location. There's no way people are going to see me here unless you walk literally right on top of me. And I could disguise this even further if I wanted to, but I could be in my camp here, settled down to go to sleep in minutes. Now this Gore-Tex bivy bag I've also treated with a silicone spray to help waterproof it even further. So if it should come a light drizzle, I don't care at all. If the heavy dew falls on it, it doesn't even matter. But if it was to rain a significant amount, I would want to have some sort of overhead cover. And what I would do in this situation, since I want to keep a low profile, is I would just have my poncho rigged up over top just to keep the rain off of me a little bit more, keep me a little bit drier. Just crawl in here on top of my sleep pad. And in the fall, man, I tell you what, one of my favorite things to do in the fall time is to sleep on top of the freshly fallen leaves. Just come out here and take a nap. I've fallen asleep a lot while deer hunting. Just when the sun hits you just right. You know, it's cool outside, nice and chilly, but when the sun hits you, it's warm. Fall asleep on these soft leaves that have just fallen. It doesn't get much better. So not a whole lot of padding needed here. So my small little accordion style thermarest. And I am feeling good about life. And if it should rain, I would just tuck myself in, zip myself up, cover myself up, and keep myself nice and dry. Now, if temperatures should drop, which they will, this time of year, it's probably going to be, I think it's probably in the 40s tonight. And later in the season, it's going to get colder. We've already had several frosts, so it's going to get chillier. So we need to be prepared for that. Also in my pack, I have warming layers. So if I should get a little bit chilly, I just like options. I like a variety of options, so I can acclimate based on the weather. I can add layers, take away layers, whether that's just my clothing or additional warming layers such as sleeping bags and such. I can put on my wool cap that I've got in my pack. I can put on an extra pair of socks. I've got thermal underwear. I've got all these things if I should get a little bit damp and sweaty from hiking, which is gonna happen pretty much, especially in terrain like this. I can take off my wet clothes, put on my dry layers, and then crawl in here and be nice and cozy and warm. And I love simple sleep systems like this. It doesn't get much better. This is my favorite way to camp right here. And in the wintertime, I pretty much always sleep on the ground because it's just warmer. It's just cozier for me. You don't have to worry about the underquilts and all the stuff that goes along with hammocks and such. In the summer, a hammock is really nice, but in the winter, just sleeping on the soft leaves on the ground is pretty dang cozy. It'll get down below zero every so often, and I want to be prepared for that as well, because sleeping in those temperatures, if you're unprepared, sucks. It is miserable, especially if you get snow and all that stuff on top of it. So I like to be extra prepared. So what I've got in here is an inflatable sleep pad, and if I lay on top of this, it doesn't matter. I could be laying right on top of the snow. It won't matter. This will keep me extra cozy and warm. So I'm going to inflate this real quick. Here's my dry layers inside this inflator bag that I've got for my mattress. It doubles kind of as a dry bag. I've got my extra warming layers. You know, I don't trust inflatable sleep pads 100%. That's why I like to also carry that Thermarest with me. Otherwise, I would probably, I don't know, maybe not carry the Thermarest. But I don't trust them 100% because there's a potential for getting a hole in it and then you just end up sleeping on the ground. This sleep pad from Big Agnes has some Mylar layers in it, which will help insulate you from the cold even if it is flat, which is nice. But still, I like the durability, the reliability of the foam Thermarest. So here's my sleeping bags. This sleeping bag system is rated down to 20 degrees. That is not including this bivy bag here. So with this bag, I have slept down to, I think it was around 10 degrees, something like that, give or take. And I was more than comfortable. I didn't have any issues. So that's some real life feedback for you right there. But anyway, there's two sleeping bags really in here. One sleeping bag and one quilt, essentially. This bright orange one, I'm not a real big fan of the color, but I do love the bag because it's so lightweight. This thing weighs nothing at all. It's so light. And, you know, again, based on the fluctuating temperatures, I can just get in this and then crawl inside that bivy bag or on top of this and be good to go. Or if it's really cold, and I'm expecting very cold temperatures, I can take this over quilt here, and it's got this kind of bungee system right here that wraps around the sleep pad, and I'll show you what that looks like. I could just use this quilt if I wanted to and not use the actual sleep bag, the small sleeping bag. But this wraps around the pad, and that keeps it from slipping off and you don't end up off of your pad in the middle of the night. Or at least it helps with that. So there we go. Now this is kind of a hodgepodge system, something that I've kind of cobbled together and made work. I like this a lot. And this all fits inside of the bivy bag. So I can tuck all this stuff inside of there and keep it all really nice and dry. And that to me is a big win. So I'll put this whole thing inside the bivy bag, and there's room for it. At first I thought it was going to be too tight. There wasn't going to be enough space for me to get in there on top of it. It was going to squish everything, but man, it works really good. So there, look at that. The sleeping bag, the sleep pad, everything goes inside the bivy. And I'm still sitting on top of my Thermarest sleeping pad right here. Give me a little bit more insulation from the ground. What I would do if I was gonna sleep here tonight, I would zip up my pack. All the unnecessary items that I don't need would be tucked away nice and safe and sound in here. I would take, if I expected rain, I would rig up my poncho over top. I'm not gonna do that so you can see what I'm doing here, but I would rig my poncho up over top so it would keep the rain off of me a little bit better, a lot better. If I wasn't expecting rain, or maybe just a light rain, I wasn't even too worried about it, a little drizzle, who cares? What I would do is I would take my poncho and I would cover my pack with it. If I wanted to keep a super, super low profile, I probably wouldn't hang my pack from a tree or anything, even though it is camouflage and you're probably not gonna see it. But if I was concerned about it getting wet, I could hang it off of the ground just a little bit. That keeps it off the ground, nice and dry. I could still access all the compartments. I can get to stuff really, really conveniently, really handy right here, no problem. And like I said, I've sprayed my pack and my bivy bag with a silicone spray to help waterproof it, but I could always drape my poncho over top of this. I've also got a tarp in here. I've got several things that I could use to keep my pack nice and dry. If I was expecting real cold temperature, I could get inside. I'd take my shoes off, obviously. Generally, I take my shoes off when I get inside my sleeping bag. And then I could get inside my sleeping bag underneath this this overquilt right here. I could zip everything up. It's generally not necessary to zip everything up. Just kind of get inside of it. Cover yourself up. This is the orange one is the mummy bag, so that can go up over your head. And then I can cover myself up with the bivy, and I am sleeping super cozy. And now I'm inside of the orange sleeping bag, underneath the overquilt, inside the bivy bag. And man, it's way too hot right now for this. I'm already sweating actually just laying in here. But this is extra cozy. And this sleep pad is really warm. I've never felt the cold ground using this sleep pad before. So there is my basic camp right there. That's it. Again, I would put a roof over my head if I was expecting some real rain, if I was anticipating some real rain. Not that I'd get wet in that bivy bag. I've slept out in the rain with the bivy bag before and been fine. But it's just nice to have an extra layer of protection, especially if you're going to be there for more than one night and you're expecting a lot of rain. Eventually, something might get through that bivy bag. But that's my sleeping area. And if we come back down to that trail that we were walking on, which is right down here, maybe 20 yards away, give or take. That's my camp right there. I didn't even disguise anything. I've got my pack hanging from a tree. I've got the bag sitting out in the open. I didn't cover it with any leaves or anything like that. If I wanted to conceal this thing further, it would not be difficult. I could very easily drag something over here and disguise it a little bit more to break up the outline, because it is a green camouflage pack on the brown ground. And if I push myself up the hill a little bit, actually, I'd be more behind that tree. I could always take leaf litter like this, take leaf litter like this, toss it on top of the bivy bag. I could do that while I'm inside of it. Cover myself up a little bit, like that. And again, drop my pack off of there and keep it out of sight a little bit better. In the other direction, see how it looks. Did you see it? It's right there. That's my pack hanging on the tree, and my bivy bag, that's where I'd be laying on the ground right there. You'd never see that. I mean, if you were looking for it, maybe. If you were just walking by, not paying attention, not actively searching for me, you'd never know that was there. And again, I'm not really disguising it in any way other than just picking a decent spot, a secluded location that your eye doesn't immediately go to. Anyway, guys, I'd love to hear what you think about this setup in the comments section. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you could do better. I'm always willing to learn. I love learning stuff from you guys. So leave lots of comments for me. Hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I cannot wait to see you on the next one. I'm Jason Salyer with Survival Dispatch. As a Survival Dispatch insider, you'll be able to gain the knowledge, the skills, and equipment necessary to protect your family when it really, really matters. They'll provide crucial information on such things as stockpiling food, medical necessities, communication plans. You will receive specific, actionable plans. You can deliver proven techniques to help you get home, shelter in place, or bug out safe.